Right, so you audited your life, you want change, but you're now like, how though? You might also say things like, oh, but it's always been like this. I can't ever change. And I just slip back into old habits. As any change starts from within, that's what we got to focus on next. Your inner self-talk, your perception of yourself and your surroundings, and most of that happens inside your brain. So in this episode, we will dive into that topic and I'll guide you through the steps of how I've done it multiple times and still do it today, and also how I help clients to do it too. Right now, your brain is running a very, very well-trained program. Anything new in whatever shape or form will require reprogramming your brain. The problem is that your brain doesn't like change. It will resist. Some changes might come easier to you because there is maybe no other choice and you just have to deal with it. Others might be trickier because you have to convince your brain that this is actually the right way to go and the way you want to go as well, because that's what you know is actually better for you. And we want the new thoughts and behavior patterns to be deemed as safe by your brain so you can integrate them into your daily habits. That will build your new reality. First things first, we need to look at how this is all happening inside your mind and what is needed to kickstart the creation of a new habit or a new action or just a general change. Because change comes in many forms and shapes, and the bigger changes in life that you may have identified with your life audit in the other episode may include a new job or moving houses, moving abroad, a new relationship or ending one. Maybe it means having kids, like finally starting to try, or starting a business, taking on a new hobby. It could also be putting up boundaries to protect your peace, or creating a new offer, writing a book like me, or starting a podcast and so on. Like, it might also include smaller ones, right? Like trying a new workout or swapping toast for oats for breakfast, changing the clothes you wear, going outside more often, making your own coffee instead of buying one each morning, or even just holding your head a little higher when you enter a room instead of like slouching and looking and feeling really timid. What the big and small changes in our lives, literally all of them have in common is rather simple. It is a shift away from what we know. Now, whether this is big or small in the grand scheme of things doesn't make much of a difference, which is why it can actually be really hard building a practice of only reading 2 to 5 pages a day. In addition, our saboteurs are going bonkers as soon as they sense just the smallest of changes. In fact, they despise change so much that they try everything in their power to keep you safe in their eyes. This means when it comes to speaking in front of a camera to sell your services or share your expertise, they will lure you with that, what they perceive as a better choice in the short term. This could then be sitting on a sofa and scrolling through social media because it's more comfortable. And there's no risk of being judged by anyone else in case you maybe say something wrong or you trip over your own words. Or maybe you don't feel as confident today because your hairdresser messed up the haircut, like whatever it is. So you can see like the saboteurs will come up with literally all the excuses. And they don't know how to think long term. And this is how they're basically always misaligned with your values and what matters most to you, such as your goals of being healthy, just for example. They don't care if their excuses aren't getting you any closer and move you further away actually from living a life aligned with your values. All they care about is keeping you comfy, right here and now in what they know. Therefore, it takes an extra amount of effort to convince not only yourself, but also your saboteurs that like, no, we don't want to do this, to be like, hey, showing up on social media is good for my business and it will help me to create the financial freedom and time freedom that I crave. You could see this as a different description of how your brain also works. So you see, you programmed your brain your entire life to work exactly as it does right now, like in this very moment. Most of the programming, as we have learned, actually happened before the age of 7, which is your priming period. Everything else is what you took on as your computer program through social tool standards, work, friends, and whatever else and whoever else you spend a lot of time with. Most of the time, this can't even be controlled because it's a natural human behavior as you instinctively seek to be part of a group and get along and to be liked. And you might also find that this is true for both, like good and bad habits. So for example, if you sometimes find you are neglecting your workout practice because your partner likes to sleep in during the mornings and pulls you back into bed for some extra cuddles, and therefore you don't go. These changes happen more on a subconscious level, but need conscious correction. And then when it comes to your standard running thought program, as you're running it again and again, your brain, of course, also gets incredibly good at it. So you can imagine it like a very, very well maintained highway in your head. It's super easy to deliver information and commands along this way and require less mental energy than a new path. It basically is such a smooth ride for your brain that it becomes an automatic behavior. Now imagine that you want to change that and present your brain with a jungle path and a machete, and your brain is going to ask you at first, what the fuck is this? What do you want me to do here? Like, this is not what I know, this is new. But it will accept the challenge. Secretly, maybe planning to continue using the easy road though, but the thing is, this is how you started off with the initial highway at first too, okay? It's the same thing. We start at zero. And another way to look at this is from the viewpoint of maybe learning a new instrument or playing one for the first time ever. Like, I bet right 100 pounds here right now that you were shit the first time you played it. Or if you try to play one right now and you've never played an instrument before, you will be very, very bad at it. And that's not to blame or shame. It's just a fact everybody is. I was horrible when I started learning the violin. But the more you practice playing this instrument, the better you get. In our jungle metaphor, the further you go into the jungle and hack away a path, and the more you build the path and practice that kind of like thought pattern or behavior pattern and belief system, the easier you will find your way again the next time. Because your brain will be like, oh yeah, we walked this way before. Now we can go there faster and faster. So slowly over time, you will eventually put down some stepping stones and maybe even build like a wider road until you have a new highway. I have to admit, like in my violin case, I never got to the highway because I gave up before that. Because also my why for learning it wasn't strong enough, but that's a different story. But I did follow through with things like writing my book, making going to the gym second nature, but also when it comes to feeling confident in front of the camera. Like in the beginning, I was dreading going live or even recording a reel. I was like, I can't do this. This is impossible. I felt so awful and embarrassed. And now I'm just like, yeah, cool. This is just what it is. It's fine. Like I still get a little bit nervous, but not as much in the beginning. And this learning process really applies to any change really you want to implement in your life. This is also why there are different stages of mastery. Again, no master at anything has just fallen from the sky. That's not gonna happen ever. Everything takes consistent practice. And as we do, we go through those different stages until we reach mastery, or what some call, oh my God, that person is so talented. This is exactly why some great athletes or musicians like singer Ed Sheeran will say, no, there's no talent. Have you heard me sing at the very beginning? Like, there was literally a clip from him the other day where he was like, I was awful, and he was playing the video and he really was awful. He could not sing. But he worked his way through those stages of mastery. And you know where he's at now. So the stages of mastery are normally used to describe the process of learning in action, like playing an instrument or building new habits in general, but it works the exact same way for our ways of thinking too, because our thoughts are habitual as well. Actually, experts estimate that we think 12,000 to 90,000 thoughts a day, which is a lot. But the other surprising fact is that a whopping 95% of them are the same thoughts as yesterday. We're literally thinking about the same things over and over and over again. And this is due to the brain adoring repetition and routine. So as you start shifting, you move through these stages of mastery. And the first stage is called unconscious incompetence. Accordingly, right now, you don't know what you cannot do. Or for our purposes, you don't know what you are doing that is harming you. You already completed the stage with learning more about your saboteurs and creating the needed answers for you to know, hey, I want to change this. Like you shed awareness and some light on what you wanted to change. So you put it into your consciousness. That's then when we get to stage 2, conscious incompetence. You now know what you want to change and you now know what you are bad at. You now know how you're self-sabotaging, but you still need to learn how to exactly shift your thinking, which is what you're learning literally right now. And you also may even feel frustrated at first because how often like your saboteurs take over and how tricky it is to redirect your focus. Like this is the stage, again, where you're hacking your way through the jungle and it's not that easy, it's tricky. But the key is the more you practice, the closer you get to stage 3, which is conscious competence. You're finally getting into the territory where you are competent of doing it. You are now aware of your self-sabotaging behaviors. You know the tools to deal with them, and you consciously shift from the former to the latter. You also consciously choose a different outcome for yourself, and you know you are getting really good at it. And then again, as you keep up that practice, that's when you move into the last stage, stage 4, which is unconscious competence. You shift in your sleep. You are not even worried anymore that your saboteurs are holding you back. You're not even worried anymore that like the old habits are coming back. Maybe you have a bad day here and there, but you know, like, that's not a biggie. Like we just go back to our new routine tomorrow. Those saboteur voices have become so quiet that you cannot hear them most of the time. And you walk the path of complete self-trust. This means you are now fully in control over your perception of life. So thoughts like, you are not good enough, don't pop up that often anymore. Or if they do, you know immediately, automatically, that it's not true and you just let them pass. So you see, because you trained your brain to be what it is right now, you can also train it to be completely different in a year's time. The secret to all of this is it takes consistent practice and tending after your mind to grow and strengthen these new patterns. And to wrap up this episode, I want to share with you a short but powerful exercise that you can try to release limiting beliefs or stagnant negative energy. So this is one of the tools that you can put into your toolkit to just get yourself unstuck. And I want to invite you, so for this exercise, please do make sure that you are somewhere seated right now, not driving, or if you are walking outside, maybe stand still for a moment. If you can, maybe find a park bench. Otherwise, feel also free to come back to this part later on. If you want to try it again, I will put the timestamp into the description so you can easily find it again. But when you're ready, when you're seated, just gently close your eyes or keep a soft and steady gaze at a point in front of you. And then just allow the negative energy of your saboteur to come up. Like maybe feel that frustration, feel the sadness, the embarrassment. Allow yourself very briefly to be fully consumed by those negative thoughts and respective feelings for a couple seconds. Almost as if you were to turn up the volume on the radio very, very briefly. And now we turn it back down again, very, very quick. So after those couple seconds, as you breathe in deeply, imagine you are preparing to shoot with a bow and arrow. So in your mind's eye, the arrow represents all of those negative beliefs and energies. And when you breathe out, you shoot that arrow far, far, far away from you. Do this one more time in your mind's eye, charging the arrow with all the energy and thoughts and beliefs that you seek to release. And as you breathe out, you see that arrow fly away into the distance. One last time. Breathe in deeply. And when you breathe out, in your mind's eye, you shoot that arrow. And then just sit calm for a moment and recognize the release and the relief from having let go of this heaviness that has been holding you back. You now made space for new possibilities to come into your life. And when you're ready, just come back to me into the present moment. And if you like this exercise, then do get my book, And There She Goes Her Way, as I'm sharing loads more of exercises and tools in there so you can try out different ones and really see what works best for you. And you can also get access to additional resources that come with the book. So it's your literal toolkit to start rewiring your brain. I will link it in the description box below, and if you fancy yourself an ebook or paperback copy, then you know where you can order one. And also, of course, if you like this episode, then please leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, I'd love if you could leave a rating or review. It really does help this podcast to reach more people, and it means the world to me. So, see you then, and bye.